Welcome to Time Capsule at Shola Museum. We're going to talk about the lumber industry today. Before modern day chainsaws came on the scene, all of the lumber, those huge trees, were harvested by two men working a saw such as this. You would have a man on each end of the saw. That's how they cut the trees down. Then they would be hauled out of the forest with the drag cart. When they got to the mill at the log pond, the trees would be put in the log pond and they would float them. To get the trees out of the log pond, a man had to walk the logs with this, it's called a cant hook, and he would hook those logs, drag them to an area where they would be hoisted out of the pond and then into the mill for processing. In our archives, our recorded records date early lumber mill development back to 1870. And that's when the United States Army built a fort in White River. And in doing so, they needed logs to build houses and barracks and barns and all that's needed to establish a fort. In the early 1920s, others began moving into the region. Mr. Cady established a mill at what was called Cooley, which is now McNary. McNary by far was the largest over the years in their mill capacity as far as an employer. We had other lumber mills throughout the White Mountains of Arizona. We had one in Linden, which is now Linden. It was called Standard. And so as you see by the photograph of the employees that were there in the equipment, it was quite substantial. They had their own store, their own school, their own hospital clinic. So as time moved on and our settlements began to grow, most everyone that lived in the area worked at a lumber mill. The lumber industry in the White Mountains is all but obsolete now. We have our history that we can reflect on. The White Mountains is a beautiful place still to come and enjoy the pine trees, and that has led to our main industry of being tourism. So in closing, if you'd like to know more about the lumber industry in the White Mountains and Shola, please stop by the Shola Museum. We are open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 3.